So thank you to giving me the opportunity to present our little project in Luxembourg. Actually, it was a competition in our small country, international competition. And first, I wanted to speak about our little country, Luxembourg. There is no borders, there is no inside, outside, and there is a total freedom of movement. So that means that for our little architectural culture, there is no real identity or architectural identity. So the role of architect is pretty complicated in Luxembourg, where we have to fight every time to explain the situation. So this competition was generated by the state of Luxembourg, and the idea was to think about a public square where we have in the middle of this future square old infrastructural installation. And the aim was to get rid of this installation because nobody wants that. It's dangerous, it's a lot of concrete everywhere, and just think about how we can get rid of. And this is what we try to do, was completely the reverse. Say, okay, we have a interesting infrastructure, which is a part of our industrial heritage, and what if we keep it as it is and we build the square around this installation? So with that solution, actually, we found out there are more than 5,000 cubic meters of concrete that we had to demolish first with a huge effort, and then to build another installation, maybe after 20 years, was not convenient anymore. And that's, again, the situation we are living every day as architects. So why not keeping the existing and reuse it and give a new face and new life to the existing infrastructure? So we put some huge pump inside to get rid of water, because with our engineers we wanted to test the statical approach of the existing concrete, if it can work or not. And fortunately, everything was very good shape, because it have been underwater for decades and no contact with oxygen, and everything is in a super good shape. So with that solution, we propose to keep the infrastructure as it is and to provide different layers regarding the needs of today. Maybe tomorrow we will change these layers and put new layers on, or put additional layers on the existing one. And we have a ramp which represents infinity. We have a restaurant, we have vegetation. Tomorrow maybe we would have another thing. But that was regarding the program of this competition, and that's the layers we proposed. So this is a section from existing situation with our new project. As you can see, the level of the square is sentenced by 3 meters, because by all of this excavation around the square, they decided to keep the excavation on site and to increase the level of the plaza. So that means that we have to face to the existing concrete, which is in black, and the new construction in red. And we try to create a new contrast, a real contrast between the existing concrete and the new intervention of today, which is with bricks. So the square works actually very well with the flow and with the surrounding building. There is an interesting interaction. The visitor becomes actors, actually, while going up and down the ramp. And there is a democratic square, public square, where people can play music, where a child can play without taking any risk with the cars, because there is a difference of levels. And firefighters and deliveries, they have all access around these cylinders to the shops and to the apartments. So, and the coincidence was the ramp we proposed is exactly 200 meters long. That means if you are in the middle and your child is just running up and down, after 5 times you know that you run 1 kilometer. So that was a coincidence. We worked also with Latin partners, landscape architect, to provide pioneer plantations, which is completely adapted to the topography and to the natural light. And this is how it should look in the 2 coming years. We already finished the stabilization works and stop now the site because we are waiting that all surrounding buildings are finished. And once everything is finished, we come back to finish the square and the restaurant. So these are the different levels of plantation and different types. And this is actually, there is a small mistake. There is now 10,000 liters, but 10,000 cubic meters of water, which is a natural reservoir of natural water that we can use every day of the year for vegetation and also for the surrounding building. So this is the final outcome. And there is also a little restaurant underneath because we don't want it to create any pavilion on the surface because the surface is already saturated with a lot of information. And that's going to be a place to be in the south of Luxembourg. And I don't know how to play the movie. Yeah, this is the shape now. We just finished the infrastructures for reinforcement of the structure and enhancing the level of 3 meters. And as you can see, there is always water there. And all around will be offices and housing buildings. Voilà. Thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. And we're going to move on to our next category now, which is carbon and climate. And I'd like to ask Design and More to come and tell us about their winning project. Hi.
Okay, I'm happy to use this one. No worries. Okay. Yeah. Okay. This is better for sure. Yeah. I'm ready once you are. Yeah. Okay. First of all, thanks you, Paul, for this opportunity. I think this kind of projects start with a good intention. I always learned from Labius Wood that resist the idea you need a client to do a project, and I think this is one of the cases that we have here. And here I'm not presenting as the Islam is the architect. I think the Islam is the citizen in the way. So it started with idea really understanding the problem that most of the dense cities facing, which is comes from uncontrolled urban expansion. As you see here in Egypt, almost 20% of the population lives on 0.3% of the land, which makes some of the cities like the big capital like Cairo, it's very dense. But the most important also through the, you can check how the urban expansion to the green territory is affecting the context there. And this resulted because of the too much demand of buildings and to accommodate more users. I think the infrastructure is taking over of the city. So this is one piece. It was 2014 now. Even the green areas, it's been replaced with infrastructure and mostly bridges and roads. The larger the city is, the greater problem that we face. This is not only about Cairo. You can find it in Mumbai, in Mexico City, and everywhere. This happens when the under-controlled urbanity happens, and the cities in this became like a concrete jungle. And even the city is growing to eat the traditional area. There is no even protection or border between the old city and the new city. However, this is another photo from the informal settlements in Cairo. And you can see here the percentage of the greenery of persons, it's getting less and less. And the city expands to become 10 times of population. And this is what will be ending the scenario. It will be 1 tree for almost 50 or 100 citizens. All of these issues, it's not new, but I think we as architects, we should have a voice and try to use our voice and profession to reflect on this critical issues. But one of the sad situations that only on the last 3 years, the amount of removal of greenery, it was really big damage. And this affects the quality of life in such a city. So learning from the informality, because I believe inside the informality there is an order, there is a hidden order we can learn from. And this is the self-organization, how the people really start to have this kind of awareness. They are trying to planting the rooftops and cropping the plants, trying to be self-sufficient in a way. And also you can see on the skyline, it's been this kind of vision towers, the people instruct by themselves. So it was a really inspiration how we can bring some greenery to the city. As well aware, we have a lot of buildings, and the less damage we can build to the city actually is not to build. I think this is one of the good acts that architects can do, is not to build at all. But this is not the scenario. And the most greenest building that you can be utilized, the one which is already there, and we have millions of them. One of them, it was the water towers. And this is the kind of the typical towers, water towers that you can find in Cairo and also everywhere. And by using this water tower as a new life, giving it as a structure to a new structure to create this kind of urban machine by adding temporary structure to it, and it will be repurposed as a social space, but most importantly as a green lung for the city. And it will create a vertical open space, and this it will have, we call it like, it's a good cancer or a good bacteria in the city to have this kind of environmental solutions to be like an acupuncture inside the city. So the act of the tower, it's became completely different now. And as you see, it's like a very green machine that produce oxygen and also a vertical social space to the city. And by doing this, we increase the biomass by almost 3,000 square meter. It's already very environmental adaptive, and the quality of the air and also the pre-soleil that's happening. So a lot of really studies that we did to check the quality of this. So this is the idea of having like a very dense green urban machine inside the city, and by repeating this in many places around the water towers, it creates a network of environmental system that grown by itself. And this is, we imagine the skyline, it will be this act, and it has also this kind of spiritual feeling inside the city that the people can go up and experience the city from the top. And also it will be like a good imitation that another buildings can take from the tower, and the skyline of the city, it could be completely taken over by the greenery, and using the top roof as an opportunity for social and gathering space around this greenery. And this is the facade. And I believe really by purposing something that's already there, it's a good act and adding a new life to the city. Ending my presentation, actually, I want to say that this is an ongoing research for me. It's about the architecture of other structures. Because of the architecture, we created many structures, like, and it's been well captured by 2 German photographers around the world in the 60s and 70s. It was very beautifully structured. So the idea, it couldn't be only for Cairo, but I think it could be a global idea. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for that. We're now moving on to SASAKI. Welcome.
Is there a computer though? With all the notes? Oh. I had speaker notes earlier. Speaker notes?
Is that going to be disastrous?
A little bit. A little bit. Okay. Do you have your laptop on you? Runs in it in the room.
Give me 1 minute. I might have a screen that can do
There's
this.
a screen. It's okay. I'll wing it. I'm going to wing it. I know the project in and out. Yeah. I just want to keep it within 10 minutes because it's a bit. All right. So the decommissioning of the international airport in Athens in 2001 led to about 2 decades of trying to figure out a funding and governance mechanism for what to do with this site, which is about 263 hectares of obsolete infrastructure in the middle of downtown Athens. Now, Athens is a city that doesn't have a tradition of large recreational parks. If you look at the traditional landscapes in Athens, they're either very passive landscapes adjacent to ancient ruins, or they're hyper-urban streetscapes and plazas. This is the site as we began our work, which was a ton of obsolete infrastructure, a lot of concrete, and a very dense neighborhood that's been disconnected from the coastal front for generations because of this airport. What we imagined was a new civic park that's about 263 hectares, which is larger than Hyde Park in London and nearly the size of Central Park in New York, that would serve as a new central park for all of Athens, alleviating any of kind of development pressure from the existing city core, the historic city core, and creating a new center of gravity near the ocean front for the city. Now, when we think of landscape architecture, we think it's an inherently sustainable profession. But the reality is every act we do, every act of construction, transportation, every tree we plant, every material we use has an impact on carbon. We're just as culpable as any other design profession when it comes to impacts to generating carbon in the landscape. When we look at things like moving soil, planting trees, choosing materials, all of these things have an impact on what we need to think about in terms of carbon. And it's complicated. When we began our work, we were overwhelmed looking at different carbon calculators out there, which were very focused on architecture and materiality, but weren't considering the entire life cycle and certainly weren't looking at the impacts of landscape architecture on carbon. So we basically had to invent our own carbon calculator. We call it Carbon Conscience. It's the largest database that merges engineering, architectural, and landscape data sets together into one. Most importantly, we've made it free for everyone to use. We've also gamified the system so that you can input nearly every material available out there in the marketplace. We went through EPDs for almost every single product that was out there. We worked with various companies. And we have a database of over 3,000 materials and inputs that you can look at. And Again, we've gamified the system, making it easier for you to make carbon decisions in every active design throughout the entire process. What we learned is that the best decisions are made in early concept and schematic design phases, especially when it comes to landscape. That's when you're making big decisions around how to use softscape versus hardscape, what land uses are, what your material choices might be. That led to us doing significant amount of material research specific to Greece. We looked at what was available in the country, what was existing materials in the country, and reducing the amount of materials that would have to be imported from elsewhere. The biggest decision we made was to essentially mine the site. We had over 150,000 cubic meters of existing concrete without any rebar in these existing airport runways and tarmacs. An incredible resource that could be reused for almost everything within the park. You can see it here in Olympic Square, which is the main gathering place within the park, the main civic plaza. Every single material here is reused from the existing site. We could have made these fountains out of limestone or marble, granite, all of which are plentiful in Greece. Instead, these are sandblasted concrete directly mined from the runways of the existing site. They're also beautiful. These have quartzite and marble aggregate within them, the size of golf balls. Again, no rebar. The finished result is much more like a terrazzo than any other kind of concrete material I've seen before. And we've made it ubiquitous. It's throughout the park. Everything from the signature fountain to benches and paving to the unseen, crushing it and using it for subbase underneath plazas and pathways. So every material that we have from the site is reused. We have large slabs that create the new sculptural hill, which recall the Acropolis. It's a 35-meter high hill that has incredible views to the Acropolis in Athens to make those visual connections. We use it within planting areas, within paving areas. And again, this is a very beautiful, beautiful material. We needed to test and verify. We needed to assess the potential of these different types of concrete throughout the entire runway system, and then quantify it and categorize it for how it might be used throughout the park, from mining it as huge slabs that are 3 by 5 meters in size, all the way down to, again, crushing it, using it for things like gabion walls within the park. Beyond the runways, we also had adaptive use of great existing architecture. Athens was one of only 3 airports in the world designed by Aeroserinin, the other 2 being Washington Dulles and the TWA terminal at JFK. So what we did was reuse this building as a conference and cultural center with a grand event space that terraces down to the sea. What Carbon Conscience also taught us was the importance of ecology and understanding different ecologies and how they could impact carbon as well. Everything from tree planting, overstory, understory, all the way to soil biology as well. And we looked at what kind of existing ecology was in Greece, everything from kind of the dry mountain landscape to the Maki shrubland, leading down to the coastal landscape of the Saronic Gulf, and making sure that the entire park is a restoration landscape based on native materials, native plants, and native seed mixes. What that led to was 70% of the park being an emergent landscape of entirely restoration ecology that doesn't require any monthly or weekly care. This is all simple annual care of 70% of the landscape. Only 30% in those high-touch human areas require monthly maintenance. So we've really limited the amount of operations and maintenance required in the park as well, which helps to reduce carbon. We use in situ tree preservation, tree removal in the site of non-native species, but are used as play areas and as places that can decompose and help soil biology as well. So again, every single material from the man-made to the natural was reused throughout the entire park. With 3.3 million plants to procure in the site as well, we also had to work with every single nursery in Greece to get those plants. Beyond just kind of using the native species, we also worked with them to forage for native seed mixes and actually created the first native seed mix in Greece, which is now being used by all of the nurseries throughout the country. So in that way, we've shifted the needle. all of the existing, all of the irrigation for the park, from the fountains to ponds and lakes to irrigation and misters, comes from an existing wastewater treatment plant treated to a tertiary level. So we're not using any potable water within the park. All of that's being reclaimed. And this is the largest green infrastructure project in Greece because of that. All of that water also helps to improve thermal comfort in some of those high human touch spaces as well. We also included nature play in how the education of the park can teach lessons to children about the ecology of the park. We have 4 destination playgrounds throughout the park, all of which are themed based on either nature zones or a cultural reference or the history of the site, such as aviation, maritime, and agriculture. Even for the littlest kids, there are play areas like this one, which has this wonderful owl, the owl being the symbol of Athens because of its references to the goddess Athena. So all of these cultural references, again, made from reclaimed wood within the park, is kind of hearkening back to telling the cultural story of place. We also have a huge agricultural zone within the park. Before the entire site was an airport, which was built in 1938. It was fertile agricultural land. So we're bringing that back by teaching children how to kind of till soil, work with the soil. We're also using all of that as a productive landscape where all of these different types of crops grown on site are being used throughout the park's restaurants and cafes. In addition to the core of the park, we also have a 2-kilometer coastal front area, which will become the largest public beach in the city of Athens. Again, we're using reclaimed material. At the coastal front, we don't have a single piece of steel or concrete. Every bit of material is natural, and most of it is reclaimed from the site itself. So you can see here, without kind of using any steel, any concrete within the entire park, we've also created a coastline of endemic species that teach about kind of the native landscape. Beyond the design and the embodied carbon, we also looked at operational carbon, which was very important to us. And what Carbon Conscious allowed us to do was, through an operations and maintenance plan, size a solar array that would allow for the entire park to be operational carbon net zero on the day that it opens in 2026. So with that, what we're trying to do is reignite an ethos of appreciation for landscape and culture in a new 21st century carbon forward concept that prioritizes access for all Athenians. Thank you.
Thank you so much. What a great presentation. What an amazing thing to do with a redundant airport from carbon to greenery. We're moving on. There'll be a discussion amongst the 3 presentations of this category after this next one, which is by ARUP. For the second time this afternoon. Congratulations. Welcome again.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Marco Mugnai. I'm an associate architect at ARUP, and I'm here to present our Taikou Green Rainbow project. So just a little bit of a background. This is a project that won a competition that was organized by the Hong Kong Green Building Council with Swire Properties as a principal partner. Swire Properties is also the owner of the site where the project is based. Objectives of the project were to generate innovative ideas and solutions to push the boundaries of and advance net zero emission by 2050. 2050 is an important number here because some of the technologies we see in this building are being developed as we speak and will be fully available possibly by 2030 and definitely by 2050. Assessment criteria, of course, were zero carbon technologies and people, creating a space for the people for the city of Hong Kong. The design subject is a 230 meter tall, 94,000 square meter office tower in the Taikou precinct in Hong Kong. So this is our starting point, our manifesto. Our building goes beyond being net zero and carbon neutral. You will see from the design solutions is much more than that. It's forward-looking, responsive, and nature-driven. Nature-driven, I think, is the key because we really bring nature into the building as a distinctive design element. And we create a new urban ecosystem, so a new space, a new part of the city. This is really connected to the city of Hong Kong, is made for the people. So let's have a look at 8 inspirational points that we took as we started the design process. We started, of course, from the streets of Hong Kong, the density we know of the city, the greenery. We know there's a very luscious greenery, but mostly on the outskirts of the city. We want to bring that greenery into a building. Leisure space, they need to create spaces where people can connect. They can run, jog, walk, and have a break from work. Maintaining a strong identity connected to the city history. The waterfront, as we are, the building is just overlooking the waterfront on Hong Kong Island. The scale, this is a tower, it's an office tower in a sense, but it's very different from the traditional glass office tower, as there are many in Hong Kong. The texture, we took inspiration from the buildings built in the 70s in Hong Kong with these complex facades created by just a position of different elements. And movement, because we want this building to be a connective tissue within the city, not just a building. So how we go from those inspiration points into design elements? So we look at 8 inspiration points, and let's look at 8 design elements. Social impact. As I said, this building wants to have an impact on the people using it, on the city. Biodiversity, by bringing nature and greenery within the building, we create a new ecosystem. Human-centric, because all the spaces are created for the people that live the city and work in the building. Wellness, by creating spaces and hubs within the building, gyms, the ribbon where we can actually walk and run. So not a static idea of office, not just a place where you go and sit and occupy a desk. It's really a place where you move within the building, as we will see. Biophilic design, meaning bringing nature into the building as a design concept, not just as a masquerade, just something that aesthetic that we put on top of just a traditional building. And we have passive and active system. Passive system to reduce the carbon consumption of the building, and active system to actually produce energy from the building. Inner circle design, so many of the materials we use across the building are being circular in the sense they are being recycled or are recyclable. So how do we put together this inspiration, these design points? So let's start from the form. The form is very distinctive. We have a core on the south side that drives all the connection vertically within the building, which allow us to free the building completely on the north, east, and west facade. And so we can create fully free floor plans that will allow us also to have natural ventilation. Greenery, as I said, is the core of the design for this building. At the bottom, at the ground level, we have the A and Z garden, and we have connection with existing parks across the highway through a bridge. And we have greenery all along the building, full height. So we have green walls on the side, east and west, and also along the ribbon. The ribbon is this element. It's a 1.2 kilometer long path which runs from the ground level up to the terrace of the building. It's a public space within a private building. And this space, this ribbon, connects these villages, as we call them, and we have 3 of them, 3 episodes within the building height. At the ground level, we have the market village, public space, connect to the city, connect to the parks. In the middle of the building, we have the leisure villages, where we have food and beverage, gym space, and cultural spaces. And at the top, we have the performance village, which is a rooftop theater, partly green roof. Then energy. Energy is the key if you want to get to net zero building. We need to make the best use possible of the wind energy. We have wind turbines on the roof, solar panels, green walls to create energy within the building. And then we have the creation of this solar tubes facade on the south side, which is extremely interesting, and it allows us to use all the south surface of the building to collect solar power. The lobby at the lower level is still a semi-public space, and the circulation, as I said, happens in the south side core vertically throughout the building. So a few elements, how we bring the biophilic design into the building. Obviously, landscape features, that's the key. We bring the landscape everywhere in the building. Natural lighting, I say most of the building is naturally lit. We have connection to nature via orientation, interior floor plan. And natural ventilation is also a key element of biophilic design. and also adoption of natural materials throughout the building. So let's start from the ground floor plan then. You can see this is a park, actually. It's just a park with a connection to the building. So the building starts in an elevated position. We have here 4 cores, which are surrounding an access road, and we have 2 escalators that bring you up to the lobby. So your first contact with the building is actually to a green space, to these ripples, these green ripples, and these water features that are also using rainwater. We have also 2 stories below ground car park. And these are a few examples of the building floor plans. It's a building with a mixed structure, with concrete cores and steel structure, spanning, we have three grid lines of 10 meters in the X direction and 4 larger than 16 meters, so we have very wide beams. And you can see how different floors have a completely different layout. That's the key for this building. We allow different uses and different floor plan at pretty much at every level. You can see here the elevated lobby with a bridge connecting to the park just across the highway, the lobby at level 1, and then different type of office layouts, all of them possible because of the large spanning structure and because of the free facade on 3 sides, northeast and west. So just quickly, I can only say that we have more than 40 different elements across the building in terms of passive active design, user strategies, carbon management, and renewable energies. So it's all these things together that give us a net zero carbon building. It's not just one thing. We need to have all these things at once. And looking at the building in elevation and just as an exploded volume, we can see how we see these different episodes, the villages, the lobby at the ground level, the garden, the ANZ garden at the bottom ground floor. And then we have the gym, food and beverage, and exhibition space at the center of the building, and then infinite theater on the roof with helipads for connection with vertical landing vehicles. In between, there are all these office spaces with this flexible floor plan. This is the solar tube facade to the south. And the ribbon is connecting everything from ground to the roof. So this is a view of the ground level. You can see how this is a completely open space. This is really a part of the city. It's not a traditional office building that's secluded and isolated from the life of the city. We want to bring the city within the building. Here we created these market spaces. You can see how the greenery is pretty much everywhere. And you can see this timber ceiling are using recycled timber from the Hong Kong construction industry. They're moving up in the villages in the middle of the building. Here we have herb garden, gym spaces, collective spaces, and once again recycled timber in the ceiling. And as I said before, the building is entirely naturally ventilated for most part, especially in the office space. And this is possible by using artificial intelligence, which is constantly monitoring temperature and solar radiation throughout the building so that the facade can be opened and closed in real time as needed to keep the temperature as desired within the office spaces. And speaking of the facade, these are a couple of sections. So it's basically a double skin facade. We have several elements. We have recycled plastic blades, which are made of plastic through collection of used water bottles. We have solar panels, blades, which are orientable, and they follow basically the sunlight trajectory throughout the day. And in between, the ribbon that's going up and creating this interesting landmark throughout the building. And then we get up to the roof. 1 minute. Okay, yeah, I'll go very quickly then, sorry. So we did all the solar radiation analysis, and that defines the distribution of solar panels and opaque blades throughout the facade, and also the use of the solar tubes, which are actually made of these photovoltaic glass, curved glass panels. So they collect solar energy also on the south side, and they become hanging gardens as we go low where there is less sun radiation. They can be prefabricated, assembled on site with different functions, meeting rooms, cafes, a gym, hanging garden, as I said. So this is the concept, the vision. This is also part of the climate change framework for built environment in the city of Hong Kong. And quickly, just to finish, a few numbers, actually a lot of numbers, and I apologize for that. I just want to say that the building achieved the net zero target below 9 years. So after 8 years from its construction, it's going to be net zero. And also, I want to bring your attention to the fact that the building produces more energy than what it consumes. So it consumes 3,300 megawatt hour per year, and it produces on top of that, so self-sufficient, but also energy generative, 3,000 more megawatt hour per year. Thank you.